Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a compulsive overeater and very grateful to be abstinent and able to do service today. I've been asked to talk about Lifeline, but first, let me just qualify. I came into OA the day after Thanksgiving in 1980, pigged out for a week, and then came back. And someone offered to be my sponsor, and I've never overeaten since, and that was December 8th, 1980. And I am very grateful for every day. I do not ever take it for granted. And actually, Lifeline's been a big part of my recovery. The first month of my recovery in being abstinent and starting to work the steps, my sponsor, the lady who offered to be my sponsor, she gave me questions during the first 3 months that I took my first 3 steps. I've never gone back and done steps 1 through 9 again. I finished them in my first 18 months. But the first month or so was the first 3 steps, and there was a question and writing every day. And about the second week, she said, okay, now send that into Lifeline. A little bit before that, at my first meeting, somebody gave me a Lifeline. They gave me a Lifeline. I got a big book and was told to read the first 164 pages in the first night, which I did, and then agreed to follow that program. The Lifeline was available on the table and was always given to newcomers. And that's what I've always used my old copies for. I give them to a newcomer, or I give them to somebody on a bus, or I give them to somebody on an airplane, and I use them in that way. It's a great way to be able to spread the message. So my sponsor gave me these questions and then said, okay, send it to Lifeline. Whoa, how do you do that? And why would I do that? And what's that mean? In those days, that would have been just about the beginning of the year 1981 when she first said, what you've written in response to that question, it might have been about what's the difference between reliance and defiance, and having read part of the big book. In those days, we wrote them out by hand, and I had it written in my journal, and then I copied it out by hand, and she helped me figure out what the address was. There wasn't an internet or anything. I posted it, and often she would say, okay, send that to Lifeline. I just did whatever she said. I'd write it out and send it off to the editor. I don't remember when my articles were printed initially. Oh, that was the other thing. In that first month, probably the first 2 weeks that I was in program, she said, subscribe to Lifeline. And everybody did. Why wouldn't you? It would come into your post in your mailbox every month. She always said, if you go back to the food, that thing's coming into your post box and your mailbox, and then you got to feel guilty about it. And you might as well just be abstinent. And, it's just one of those little tools that helps you be abstinent one more day. And I'm willing to try anything that'll help me be abstinent one more day. So I started writing probably about 2-3 weeks into the program. Often in those next 2-3 weeks, I was often sending something in. It helped me stay abstinent. And then I was getting Lifeline every month, and I subscribed every year. Again, why wouldn't I? If recovery is going to come into my mailbox, it's like really a no-brainer. It was a lot cheaper than a binge for an entire year. I think at that time it was like $10. So that's how my connection with Lifeline started. I have continued to write regularly for Lifeline. I lived without a telephone for 6 years in a very remote rural area in southern Africa and depended upon written things. And Lifeline came every month. There weren't meetings, so I would have a little meeting all by my lonesome and Lifeline. I would read Lifeline, and then my share would be writing for Lifeline. I would just write on a topic, write on a step. Often the Lifeline would say, we need articles on. By the time I got, that deadline was long gone, and I realized, who cares? They gave me a topic, I'm writing it. If they don't want it, that's really none of my business. My recovery depends upon writing these articles. And the concept of service. Maybe someone will read them one day, maybe not. I've had the experience, I usually either put my initials, AG or Anna G. I write where I am at the time I've written the article, And I know this happened at least once. I was reading an article in Lifeline, just had, I don't know if it had initials or what, but it had some place in New Hampshire. And I'm reading it going, wow, this person's life is so similar to mine. And I realized about 5 years earlier, I had lived in New Hampshire for 3 months or something. And I must have written this article. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is me. There was no immediate gratification writing. Maybe years later, the article might be used, or maybe it was never used. But the wonderful thing was it was keeping me abstinent, writing these articles. One other thing that happened, I'd been abstinent 10 years or something, paying those $10 every year. Then they must have been having a financial crisis, I don't know. They offered lifetime subscriptions for $200. I'm like, that's only 20 years. I came in at the age of 24, so say I was in my early 30s, I'm hoping I'm living more than 20 more years. So I knew it was a good investment. I just don't like paying regularly every year. Why not pay $200, help OA, and get it forever? I was really disappointed when Lifeline stopped because I paid for my whole life. Where am I going to write? There's some little newsletters around, but I was just in this role, and everyone I sponsor, in that first month that I'm sponsoring, I'm saying, send that into Lifeline. So they were regularly sending things into Lifeline. And by the time they're abstinent and work the third step in the first 4-6 weeks, they're already regular contributors to Life. It was easy for them to continue, or they'd write something later on. And I say, why don't you send that into Lifeline? That's going to help somebody. It's not about writing. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's just like a share at a meeting. It's just like me here. I don't have any notes. I didn't know what I was going to say. This is going to help me be abstinent. So it doesn't really matter what I say. Maybe it'll help somebody. Using the concept of writing and sharing writing is just paramount. I'm constantly writing and then reading out loud to my sponsor. That's how I use writing. I don't just stop with writing it, because then I won't have heard it. I won't learn anything from my writing. But if I read it out loud to somebody and am open to getting feedback as well, then that writing grows exponentially. If my sponsor then says share that writing with other people, again, it grows exponentially, and someone else might hear something from it that helps them. Or me, 5 years later, might read it and go, wow, that's interesting. There's always that potential of just helping somebody beyond helping myself. Something else about Lifeline, when I heard that it was going to stop as this hard copy Lifeline, I worried. I had anxiety, but I work a program, so it probably only lasted about 20 minutes, but it still came up. Now what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had started a loners meeting online many years ago when I did live rurally and isolated, and it was a monthly newsletter, and I typed it up on an old-fashioned typewriter, and I don't know, I did it on that old blue ink machine duplicator or whatever, and then sent it out. There were probably 100 people around the world. Some people were ill, couldn't leave their homes. They lived on boats. I don't remember all the details of who was who, and got other people involved. I turned that over to somebody else at some point, because there was rotations important in leadership. So I thought I could start something like that, which was based on an AA newsletter out of South Africa. And I just really love Lifeline. And I love seeing when it's somebody else I know who's written in it too. I just go, oh my gosh, they're in recovery too. And this is pretty exciting. So I actually wrote in a suggestion. I said, if you need 100,000 people, I'm sure you can find 100 people who will give $1,000 each. That seemed so easy to me. What an easy solution. Because they were saying, oh, we need 100,000. I'm like, we could probably collect that in a flash, but I didn't even get a reply to that. I just realized, I think the decision was already made, as opposed to we're really looking for a solution here. Luckily, there's a local thing here in Britain that started up, so I'm being able to tell people I sponsor, because that's the other thing. Where are they going to send their articles? They need to be able to send, people need a place to share their writing and to help one another. So I've been doing that through OA Great Britain, I think. One of the intergroups is doing something, Southeast England intergroup, I think, as a newsletter. But I haven't seen a copy of it yet. It must have come on email, but there's no hard copy, which how do you hand it to somebody? How do you put it on somebody's seat in an airplane when you see they weigh 300 pounds and they get up and use the loo? I've done things like that. I leave them places. I put them in doctor's offices. I know that's probably not going to be available with what's next. What is available is the opportunity to write and share recovery. It doesn't end with the big book. It doesn't end with OA literature. This story of recovery continues, and every opportunity that people have, hopefully everybody who's in recovery is busy sharing at meetings. And we used to have shares every meeting, and now often it's less than that, but this is a way to share recovery. So I'm really excited about whatever is going to be available. I will be sending things in. Whether they're used or not is irrelevant. I really like when I get topics sometimes, they'll say, please write on gratitude, or please write on experiences of what did you do in the 9th step that changed your life. And so I think that's a lot about just how wonderful Lifeline has been in my life for these past 40 years, and how I'm not going to be resentful for long that it stopped. As I said, 20 minutes, because I'm a compulsive overeater. I can't live with resentment, but I am looking forward to whatever's next and hope that I can participate in that. And I hope all of you do too, because I love to read what people have written. I want to read your stories because they'll help me stay abstinent one more day. Thanks.